Welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. And today we're standing here in the northern Scottish Highlands, and behind me is one big stone, and that's called Clochbirach, which means sharp stone. Yeah, it's pretty sharp. It describes that stone very well. And it's a Pictish stone, erected here about 2,000 years ago, with Pictish symbols on it. And they are classical Pictish symbols that you find on most Pictish stones and carvings. It's the double disc. This time the double disc is not side by side, but it's top and bottom. The top symbolizes the sun, the bottom symbolizes the moon, and the Z rod, this time it's not a V rod, but a Z rod, is connecting the sun and the moon. And above that you see, not very bright, but a bit more faint, you see a fish, a symbolized fish, and that fish is the salmon. And the salmon was a mythical creature because it could live in the sea and in the sweet waters, in the rivers where it was reproducing. So we're thinking that it is representing the circle of life, reproduction, and that kind of stuff. And the Picts also used the stones as an ancient calendar. They had the different hills marked out, and they would look from different direction and see, okay, when is the time to sow, and they would see when the sun rises above that hill, they have marked it on the stone, then it's time to sow, and different hill, and then it's time to harvest. So it's kind of also a calendar. The stone here is located in Balblair. Balblair means the valley of the fruitful valley where everything grows well, but also it's a battlefield. So yeah, there was an ancient battle, not between Romans or English or Britons, but between the Picts and the Vikings. And Picts and Vikings, yes, they fought, but it's really hard to have any knowledge about that fight, because neither the Picts nor the Vikings had any literature or any writing at all. So we don't know much about that fight, but it is said that a Danish king or a Danish prince was having a battle here, and he died, and he was cremated and buried in an urn. So, but yeah, that's a bit of a background story. Today we're looking at the Balblair Distillery, and that's just located down the road in the valley, and we're gonna have a look what great whiskey is made there. Let's get a bit more into the recent history and the history about the distillery. The distillery was founded in 1790. So yes, that was way before it was becoming legal to distill in the Highlands. And so it was illegal distilling since 1749 here, and legally distilling then in 1719, were under the management of John Ross. How was that possible? It was geographically, it is Highlands, and was back in the days Highlands as well, but from the taxman, it was actually lowlands, because you could reach it easily by ship. So you could tax the guys here, and that was a problem why you shouldn't distill in the Highlands, because of the taxes. So they paid taxes, they had a normal distillery here in 1790. Unfortunately, after 3 generations, the distillery went a bit downhill. And there was a new guy, Alexander Cohen, who then rebuilt the distillery in this place where it is right now. Back in the days, it was just a quarter mile up the street. So this here is not the original location, but the kind of new location at the beginning of the 19th century. And yeah, that was going very well until about 1911, and the distillery was then shut down. It was not mothballed, but really shut down, so nothing was maintained. And in 1948 it was in really bad shape, nothing was maintained. But there was a really good guy, Bertie Cumming, and he was a solicitor, and he just got the distillery up and running in about 1 year, and that was really amazing, really fast, and he was really a cunning guy. And so from then on, the distillery went upwards. It was bright times. Later it was sold then to Hiram Walker, which then later became Allied Distillers in 1970. Then in 1996 it was sold to Inverhouse, which still owned the company, and sometimes you see people running around and they are from Inverhouse, and yeah, that's who are running the distillery pretty much right now. In the recent past, the distillery changed to age statement bottles. Later, before that they had vintage bottles, but now they have age statement bottles. And in the recent years, they kind of changed and got a bit more back to the heritage of the region. As you can see, the two discs and the Z rod that we just saw on the Pictish stone are now kind of the brand logo of Balblair. They're on all the new bottles and they're on all the buildings, and that is now what Balblair is as their heritage. Another fun fact is this here is one of the old pot stills. Balblair used to have 3 pot stills. So this one was one of the old ones. They just cut the top off and have it here as kind of a monument. And the other one went back to Forsyth, to Ross's. And Forsyth was a company run by Richard Forsyth, and now it is run by his son. And this still, the old stills were built by Richard Forsyth's father, so the now grandfather. So he said, oh yeah, that's work of my father. Can I have that back? And so they made a deal with the distillery, and now the old still of Balblair is standing in the town of Rothes. So if you want to see the old still of Balblair, you have to go to Rothes in the Speyside to see that. But yeah, enough about the history. Let's get into the production and see how Balblair whiskey is made. So as you all know, one of the most important ingredients for whiskey is the water, and the Balblair distillery has real Scottish water that is really good for making the whiskey. And we see the Altdirk burn behind me. It actually goes upwards 6 miles to where the spring for the burn is, the water source, and that's where the Balblair distillery takes their water. And also they have the exclusive right to use this water, so nobody else is allowed to use this water, and that's why they have such a good water source for their production of whiskey. The second ingredient for the whiskey is malt, and the malt has to be ground down in a coarse grist. And for that, the Balblair distillery has an old Porteous malt mill. They actually got the malt mill in '81 from second hand, but they say, it's their most reliable machine. The only thing they have to do is maintain it once a year, and they have to change the motor every decade, 2 decades, depends on how good the motor is. But the malt mill is just standing the test of time. This malt mill is probably more than 100 years old, and it just runs and runs and runs. After the malt is being grinded down to a coarse grist, it then goes off to the mash tun. Behind me is the mash tun, and the mash tun is filled with 4.4 tons of grist, and then mashed with in 3 stages with 3 waters in it. They start off with 65 and they end up above 90 degrees Celsius. And what is really important for Balblair, or really what their quality stand is, they do a very long mash, and they are over 6 hours of mashing here to get a clear wort in the end, in opposite to, let's say, a cloudy wort. And that costs them a bit in process, because every process that takes longer costs time and money. But that's the quality that Balblair is looking at. They want to produce a high quality, so you say that costs a bit more time. So this here is the room with the wash bags in, and Balblair has 6 of them, and they have a capacity of 19,000 liters. And yeah, they fill it with 19,000 liters. The capacity would be a lot higher, but Balblair does it the old style. They don't have any motors and switcher blades that cut down the foam, but they actually have built these wash bags so big that they can have natural fermentation, the natural foam appearing on the top, and there's still enough room left with the decreasing of the foam over time that they don't boil over. Although at every decade or every 5 years there's one batch that is really intense and the foam just doesn't go down, and yeah, then they have a bit of a spoilage there and they have to clean a little bit in that room. But usually it doesn't happen because it's just big enough. Then yeah, the fermentation is one big thing for the flavor of the whiskey, and yeah, this is still fermenting pretty good, so there's a bit of a strong flavor going on. But I've already tried the other one as well, and you realize, yeah, there's a lot of fruitiness going around, coming out, and that's what Balblair is looking for. They want to be a northern highland style whiskey that has nice fruitiness. It's kind of mild, and that's what they're looking for. So how they did that is they invest in time. They do 2.5 days. That's 60 hours of fermentation all around the week. There's no variation in there, and after 48 hours you get more of a lactobacterial fermentation with the wood. You have the right bacteria there to just create that perfect Northern Highland flavor. After the 60 hours, you have 9% of alcohol in that wash, and that goes off to the distillation that we're going to look at right now. Here in the still room, you can see that Balblair has a really classical stills combination. You have a wide, fat, short still, and the spirit still is pretty much the same but a little bit smaller. The wash still has a capacity of 19,000 liters, so they have one filling from one wash bag into the wash still, and the spirit still with 11,500. That is a bit smaller from what is left from the wash still and the feints and the foreshots from the last run. And they still distill pretty slow. So what they are aiming for is, on the one side, they want to have a really nice fruity spirit. They get that from the wash and from distilling it slow. And they also want to have a full body. They're not into really spicy, but into a full body. And how they get that is they distill slow, but they do have very, very little reflux because of the shape of the still. You don't have a reflux bowl, you don't have a constricting piece, you don't have a very long still, it's a short still. So pretty much everything that boils goes into the next stage or into the cask. So that's where the full body comes from, combined with the fruity wash, and the slow distillation gives you a nice, very, very nice new make spirit that defines the distillery character of Balblair. Yeah, the cask filling here at Balblair is a bit different to what we know from other distilleries. There is an old tradition or an old agreement between the distilleries that they all fill their casks at 63.5% ABV. Back in the days, that was really, really, really useful because back in the days the blends were dominating, and that meant that if you want to do a blend, you have to exchange casks with other distilleries, and it was very easy to say, we just do one for one cask from you, one cask from us. We have the same alcohol strength, same size. We can just switch a whole lorry full of casks. That was easy, and Balblair just didn't participate or doesn't participate anymore in that business. So they fill their casks with 68.5% ABV, so about 5 percentage points more than you have with other distilleries. What you expect from that it doesn't have that big of an effect. You would expect more evaporation, but that is not really the case here. Although, yes, they only use dunnage warehouses, and evaporation in dunnage warehouses is not that big anyway. Yeah, in terms of maturation, you can't really compare it because you don't have the same spirit filled at the lower percentage. So is it because of other tastes of Balblair, or is it because of the high alcohol strength at casting? We don't know. So, but it's not that big of a difference, but it's a uniqueness of Balblair that I wouldn't want to miss. Yeah, they have, as I said, dunnage warehouses here on site. They are a maximum of 3 stories or 3 rows tall, and if you have the big sherry casks, they're only 2 stories that they pack. In terms of cask variety, we have a lot of American oak here. So it's a lot of ex-bourbon barrels, 52 gallons, 200 liters. Then there are some hogsheads which are made from American oak, so rebuilt Scottish casks from American staves, and they have a bit more volume. Most of them have 250 liters, and they're also American oak. And about up to 5% we have sherry casks here, just to have a bit of a variety in here. They come in puncheons, in butts. So this here is a butt, and over there is just a bit more of a shorter, and that's a puncheon. Yeah, so there are, I think, a few smaller, maybe smaller sherry casks in here, but most of them are the big ones. And yeah, the sherry casks don't really dominate. So Balblair is believing in more of an American oak strategy. What is also really interesting about the casks is, if you look at them, there are only very, very few that have a barcode on them. And for Balblair, that's meaningless, because that's the barcode from, where they got the cask from. They don't use any barcodes. They use the stencil. They stencil on Balblair Distillery, then a number and a year. So, and that's how the Balblair Distillery manages their stock, and they have folders, and they have actually saved it on their computer as well. So this is the old way, and they don't go with the new way of barcoding all the casks. So yeah, that means they're a bit old, traditional, and a bit more laid back, and do their whiskey with a bit more patience. Yeah, so that was pretty much it with the production. After the maturation, there's only bottling that is done offsite, and we can still try the products and then have a little interview while trying the products. So stay tuned and see me in the interview. So I'm sitting here with John McDonald. You've been the distillery manager here at Balblair for 15 years now, and you've been with the whiskey production for 32 years. A lot of experience. So thank you very much for having us here.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for showing us around, and it was a lovely experience here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. So how do you become a distillery manager? You've kind of worked your way up to there.
I was very lucky, I think. When I came out of college, I did a couple of jobs, and I found out there was a job going at Glenmorangie, and I knew the manager there for a long time before. So I thought, I'm not going to send him a letter, I'm just going to knock on his door. So Ian took me into his kitchen and poured himself a large whiskey, then asked, do you want some water in that? I just said, well, just a little. He said, you can start on Monday. And that was the start.
So you thought you were going in a temp job, and
no.
And 32 years later, you now hiring the temps.
32 years later, yeah, I feel very old.
But what was it? So you did you started off like normal production, like malt man, or?
I started off in the warehouse, and then again, just by good fortune on my part, I became the millman, and then mashman, then stillman, and then I was really lucky to get, assistant manager at Glenmorangie, and then when the chance to become Balblair Distillery manager came up, it was a no-brainer. I had to go for it. I'd always been a fan of this whiskey, and I always used to scratch my head. Why isn't it more available? Why aren't more people drinking it?
Okay.
So when I got the job, it was like it was hallelujah moment for me.
Very nice. But so when you have the warehouse, millman, then you have mashman, have you done every job in the distillery?
I think I've done every single job, including all the dirty ones as well.
Also, that's really nice to have a distillery manager who actually knows all the jobs. So
it's becoming rare in industry now.
Yeah, some people just come from university with degrees and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have someone who worked his way up. You just know all the work. Yeah.
Well, I like to think that, I'm not going to ask any of the guys here to do something that I haven't done myself.
Oh, yeah.
And they appreciate that.
Yeah. So, we're going to try some whiskey. Can you tell me anything about 12-year-old? Should I pour it or do you want to?
I'll let you pour.
Okay.
You're going to join me, right?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay. Okay. This is the Balblair 12, and this is one I'm particularly proud of, because this is the first Balblair that I can really put my name to, because I started here in 2006.
Okay.
So this is the first one, this is mine.
Back in the days, you kind of overlooked the distillery when it was distilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, whiskey is so much about heritage.
But for the 12-year-old, the maturation is done in 100% ex-bourbon casks, but it's 60% second fill bourbon and 40% dechar rechar or double fired. And I'm sure a dechar rechar, double fire, whatever you want to call it, gives you something close to a first fill and a second fill. So I think this is very classic Balblair.
It's a really nice bourbon cask matured whiskey.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I just tried off camera. I just tried the new make, and you can really feel the distillery character in there.
Yeah.
It's nice when you have a really good new make and not an overwhelming cask.
Yeah.
It just adds that nice vanilla and caramel touch to it.
I mean, the new make, we're right away we're off to a great start, and then to put it into very good casks, that's what you have.
I love it. Okay. Cheers. Oh, Slange.
Slange. I think it's quite an elegant whiskey, but it's very approachable as well. It's not hard work. I think it's if I was going to go out on a Saturday night, which doesn't happen nearly enough anymore, if I was going to have 1, 2, 3, I'll stop at 3 whiskies, that would be my supping whiskey.
It's a nice balance between a beginner-friendly whiskey, and something that you could enjoy over a bit more of a longer time, because it's just really just nice sipping.
It's very sweet. It's very fruity, very creamy texture as well.
Yeah, I love the. I would say it's a northern style Highland whiskey.
Yeah, very much
Highland Scotch.
Yeah.
And it's a classical northern style Highland Scotch.
Yeah.
It has a bit of that freshness as well.
I mean, for me, I get like lemon peel, green apples. Yeah, that's the big ones for me. But it also has this really intriguing, leathery undertone.
Yeah, it has. When you told me, you have a fruity and rich new make. I was like a bit, yeah, okay, so is it fruity or is it rich? It has a volume, it has body. That's the beauty about it.
It's robust.
It's robust, yeah. But it's not spicy. I love it. I love it. I think I had a Balblair back in the day when I was visiting a whiskey fair in London. But they were much different back then. You've changed the whole range quite a bit over the last years. And you went with the Pictish symbols that I had in my introduction, just very close to the distillery. Is that a move? Did you want to go a bit more into heritage, or is that marketing move, or how is that working?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, the stone is not very far from the distillery, and you know, it is just dripping with history. So for me, it makes perfect sense to take ownership of that stone and incorporate, you know, its influence, you know, into the design, which I think works great.
Yeah, it has it makes a really good it makes a really nice texture on the side if you look at the bottles and Pictish symbols, so but Balblair, that is a Gaelic name.
It is. It's Scottish Gaelic.
Scottish Gaelic.
And it means, well, it can either mean town of the fertile plains. You've probably seen it yourself. I mean, every field around here has either barley or wheat or something growing in it.
You're up here in the very north, so your heritage is Gaelic and a bit of Pictish.
Yeah.
Is there any Viking influence as well?
Not really. Danish Vikings did come over here and were engaged in battles with the Picts. I mean, there's one that happened in the village. It's called the Battle of Carry Blair. Balblair can also mean battlefield in Gaelic, so you have a bit of both there.
Are they fertile because of that?
Yeah, fertile.
Okay, so nice. So you have a bit of a Gaelic and Pictish background. I like that because the Pictish is really centered around here.
It's very strong.
Yeah, most of the stones and most of the carvings are around
in this
here in the area. So yeah, that's a bit of a local heritage then. I like it. I like it. So should we try the 15?
We shall.
Oh, you pour it.
I'll pour it. I'll give you a bigger one than you gave me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't know if you need to drive a few years.
I do actually. I do actually.
So yeah, I actually got a drive.
So yeah, this is the Balblair 15, and if you notice straight away, if you compare with your 12. Colour much deeper.
Yep.
So this is a different maturation to the 12. This has spent 13 years of its life in second fill ex-bourbon casks, but then a further 2 years maturation in first fill Spanish oak Oloroso.
Oloroso. Okay.
That's where you get that influence of colour.
Yeah, you
but also it's a different aroma completely.
They're much riper fruits than I had in the 12.
Yeah.
The 12, as you said green apple. For me, it's green apple, maybe a little bit of pear, and here it's more of a.
It's like raisins, prunes.
Yes.
Much darker fruits.
Yeah.
Chocolate.
Yeah, a little bit of chocolate in here as well, definitely. And nice sherry whiskey. It's not definitely sherry bomb, but.
For me, it's a very round whiskey. It's like a velvety texture, and a much longer finish than the 12. A different experience to the 12. And I have to mention, this is the biggest seller in our shop, visitor centre, the 15. which kind of surprises me just because of like price difference. But it obviously, pleases a lot of people.
Yes, it does have more of an additive touch to it. For me, it's very chocolatey.
Yeah.
Very chocolatey. In the smell, it has some chocolate notes in it, but the flavor, it has chocolate in it. Oh, that is amazing. That is lovely. I liked it. I kind of tend towards the 15 as well. Don't praise the day after the evening with the 18. So you've changed the style with the Pict symbols, but what the customers recognized a lot was you changed from vintages to age statement.
Yes.
So why did that happen, and how did that happen?
I think there's a number of reasons for it. With vintages, the logistics of doing a vintage is very, very difficult. And also, to really understand a vintage, some customers had trouble with it. If they just seen the year, like 1983, for example, on the bottle, they would just say, well, how old is that?
Yeah, you always have to calculate a bit.
Yeah, and you'd have to look at the small print on the bottle and say, okay, it's
and
18 years old.
When it was bottled.
Yeah.
Same here. We also as a shop, we are pretty glad that you changed the age statement, because they are the same age as the vintages pretty much.
Yeah.
But you don't have to change the product every time, every year. So
and that's something I would have to stress. With these, age statements, that whiskey hasn't changed. That's still the very, very high quality whiskey it always has been, and hopefully always will be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you have seen a bit of a change over the last 5-6 years, that more people introduced non-age statement whiskies. And this is, I would say, a different move to that.
The voice of non-age, there's some whiskey experts, will say non-age is a problem, but I'm quite open to, like, if something's good, something's good. Whether it's non-age or it's aged.
With the non-age, I think that people have a bit of a fear that they get like something not as good as they had before, where they saw, I get a 12-year-old. And now they are afraid, like, now they give me a 5-year-old or something like that. You probably wouldn't do that, but
it's when somebody puts out a non-age statement and prices it the same as something like these. That's where I have the problem. So I think that's cheating the consumer, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Sometimes they really do good stuff, but not every time,
Not every time.
And if you put an age statement on it, you can't cheat.
No.
You can't really cheat.
No, you're bound by those numbers.
Yeah, you're bound by those numbers. So, I do like the new range. Yeah, so let's try the 18 then.
Okay, I have to say, this is my personal favourite out of all of them.
Oh, okay.
That's such a great noise, isn't it?
Yeah, I love the cork, and I always love when I do pour a lot of new bottles. I always love the glug. I really love that. Oh yeah.
For me, this whiskey just ticks every box. For me, I think it's so perfectly balanced. It's so complex. I could put that down, come back to it. It keeps on giving more, but everything's in harmony. There's not one that overpowers the other.
What kind of maturation is that? That is intriguing.
That's done 15 and a half years in second fill bourbon, and then 2.5 further matured in first fill Spanish.
Yeah, So it feels, it does have a bit of a similarity to the 15, but it feels more mature. Easy to say. It's 3 years older, but it's just the way it has more. This feels like it has a bit of a more of chocolate, but more of a little bit of a darker chocolate theme going on.
Absolutely, nail on the head. Yeah.
Nice. I can see why you like it.
It's the finish of it. It's just glorious. And for me, I think that's the sign of a great whiskey. It delivers everything that you knows on the palate. Wonderful.
It became even rounder.
Yeah.
18 years, you kind of get into a really old, mature theme. I have to say, it goes a bit further away from the distillery character, but it...
Yeah. But still, you can still identify that as a Balblair.
I would say, it has the volume of the new make, that body, but the green apple is I would say reduced to a nuance.
Yeah.
Where in the 12 it's definitely
it's still very alive. Yeah.
A main character.
Yeah.
This one has the green apple as a nuance on all the nice chocolatey, velvety flavors as the main flavor. I love it. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's really great. Oh, that was a great range of whiskey. I like it. So the 15 is not like nearly there where you started as a distillery manager?
Not quite.
Not quite yet?
Not quite.
So maybe next year or the year after?
Yeah.
That's probably, some of them maybe in there. The mix is probably a mixture between 15 and a little bit older.
Probably now, when I think about it, because we're getting near the end of the year, so
So maybe not.
I started in August, so I can lay claim to a little.
Maybe already, huh? Okay, so great range of whiskies, and thank you very much for the tour and showing us around everything.
You're most welcome.
And thank you very much for watching as well. And if you found this video interesting, then please feel free to share this video with your friends that might also be interested in the great Balblair Distillery. So thanks, and see you next time.